Okay guys, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about, can you make money of breaking? Can you actually make a decent living wage from breaking? And the short answer is actually yes. It's very possible, but it actually comes with a price. So I'm going to quickly talk about a little bit about that. So first of all, off the top of my head, you can do a couple of things like theater, workshops, teaching, street shows, normal shows, which is something different, battling, and all kinds of unrelated work, which like I have friends that work in the fitness industry, like for instance I work at the circus school also, and the work I do is not related to break often. It's often like helping set up equipment, helping kids with doing cartwheels, which has nothing to do with breaking obviously. All kinds of stuff that's not always related to break, but it's still like I'm breaking there, right? And I can sort of work on my break, but it's not real breaking. I did tumbling shows, etc. So all of them come basically with, almost all of them come with the same price, which I want to quickly address, which is actually quite a big thing to me. So if you do this work, often the joy of breaking sometimes can go away, and that's because if you want to make decent money, you have to work a lot, guys. Then after that, you still have to work on yourself, like you always been doing as a b-boy. So you still have to go practice. You still have to do all that stuff. And often people don't feel like after the work of breaking, or surprisingly a lot of non-breaking that comes with it, people don't feel like doing this anymore. And I've had many friends and people that they said have happened to this. They just did the work, then they maybe practice once a week and that's it, right? So yes, you do what you love, but often that love goes away. I remember when we did street shows, I got quite frustrated that the money wasn't good one day, right? And that kind of stuff. So it's not all peachy, right? So that work sort of comes with the price, and the biggest price for often, depending on who you are, because for me it wouldn't matter. I have many friends that actually just keep going with practicing, but the price is mostly that often the joy of breaking will go away. But let me quickly talk about it. The teaching that I do, I don't work so much because I have the situation at home that I also have to watch my kids, and then teaching is quite enjoyable, but it's actually quite draining. I have a friend that teaches 6 classes in a row to make a living, and he makes good money by doing that, right? The problem is that it's not all, like for instance, sometimes you have to work at schools and these kids just have to pick a subject that they're going to do, and sometimes they teach breaking but they don't really want to break. So you have a lot of sometimes kids that don't even want to break and they're just messing around, and it's going to be very mentally draining to teach them. I'm now in a situation that I made my own classes more or less happen by teaching for so many times and from the beginning of the year. But if you sometimes have these kids that really don't want to break, or even adults that really just don't want to listen or never show up, yada yada, it's actually sometimes very frustrating to do. It's not all as fun as it seems. I kind of love it, but you obviously have kids, they're not machines, that are not listening and just messing around. Sometimes they even kick each other and stuff, so you have to deal with that, and sometimes it's very mentally draining actually, especially if you do a full day of that. Then workshops is you actually don't have to do as much as teaching. You can do like 2-3 days, you do workshops in a week and make good money, and then you give multiple workshops at, for instance, a school. So a school hires you, or university or whatever, and you give like 3 classes, you give workshops, for instance. I'm saying 4, 5, it depends. I sometimes do a whole bunch in a row. But the problem is this is very formulaic. So if you've been doing it for a while, you find out sort of the best way to give that workshop. And don't forget, these people never break before. So you can't just go all willy-nilly, today we're going to work on 90s, right? That wouldn't work, and nobody would be able to do it, and nobody would find it a fun workshop. So you sort of find a way that works, and that means you give the same workshop every damn time. And it gets old fast. At some point it's just a job almost. Of course it's more fun than a 9 to 5 in an office, but you get the drill. It's not as fun as it seems. Then theater. It's a lot of non-break. Most friends of mine that do theater usually end up, even if they are dancing, it's modern dancing. It's not breaking. So, but yeah, you can sort of do it with break. Obviously, you can make your own theater show, which is very possible. But usually, like if you're in a pro company, it's just you start at 10, you stop at 6, and it's a lot of talking, rehearsing. It's almost no breaking actually. So, and after that, you still have to break. This is probably the most that people sort of they're done after the day, because they also have the relationship and blah blah. So you know, it's a full day and it's almost no breaking. Most of the b-boys that do this is like they sort of go down a bit on what they can do, because it's so little breaking that they actually do in that company, depending on what it is, but usually that's the case, guys. Then street shows, you can make good money, but there's so many factors that you don't. Like for instance, it gets to be winter, right? So naming something. Also, street shows is one thing that really can damage your body. So let's say you ever in Amsterdam in the Dam Square, these bricks are like this, and I always had dance in my hands when I did these power moves. I put my hand on the floor, you know, like the bricks went in them, and all kinds of shit happens. But also there's a lot of regulations and rules depending on what city you are in. I was in Vietnam once, and I told these guys, man, guys should do street shows. They said we can't here because basically the cops don't allow it. So all kinds of things. But if you are in the right spot, you can make decent money with street shows, guys. Especially if you have a good show with a good finish. Then shows, I lose a lot of friends actually on shows. But if you do a show once in a while, that's fine. But that's not a living wage. And the thing with shows is that it's often not in your city. I've had like friends. I was once in a crew and two of these guys did all these shows, and they went to some place way out of Amsterdam, traveled 2 hours, do a show. The show was very short actually. It's a 20-minute show. I often joined them because it's good money, and then went back 2 hours and they were done. They were like, oh, right? The traveling and all that shit, the setup and warm up, and then they did so little breaking, but they just didn't feel like practicing anymore. But I had friends that also did these shows and still feel like practicing, and that goes with all of them. But yeah, you know, it's sort of draining that you have to travel so much and all that stuff. It depends on the person, but usually you don't feel like practicing anymore. Then battling. I actually can't believe that there are people that can make a living of this, but apparently it's possible. I feel like some people might have sponsors, or they just might have had huge money. Obviously these guys from Red Bull BC1, but they do workshops and all that crap, but you know, they can make sort of good money with this. I know Lee and Chinchan, I think they're still living with their moms, right? So, but yeah, you can make money of this. This is possible, you know, but you have to have either a sponsor or, you know, they have to invite you all the time. So it's really only for the top b-boys, I guess, or, you know, you need to win all the time. And I think that because I have a friend that's sort of very frustrated even if he gets second place instead of the win. But I think if your money, if your livelihood relies on it, it's even worse, right? You get really like, man, I didn't win, I got third place, which is pretty, in my book, a good result. But then you get really frustrated. But apparently there are people like Elvin, Hero 10, whatever, these Red Bull guys, they travel all over the world and make money with this. But I know for a fact that most of them do side gigs, right? And then, like I said, unrelated stuff, it depends what it is, but also this can drain you if you do, you know, all that physical work. Depending on what you do, it can be draining. I did a tumbling show, which is obviously not breaking, even though it's quite fun. But I was basically on an inflatable long track. We had the show with doing flips over each other and all these backflips and stuff. But yet again, it's all about, can you keep the joy besides the show, right? The show is the show, and it's also a formula. You can't just do willy-nilly because it might not be good for the people. Like if you, like, for instance, just start experimenting in your show, it might be really, really bad, right? And that will cost you money. So yeah, the price is basically that, you know, you sort of lose the joy of breaking often. It depends on the person. Like for me, it wouldn't matter, but you get the deal and you have to work a lot. So those are the prices, but you can make a living out of break, you know, and that's the thing. The last thing I want to say is if you ever get injured and you're in a predicament, for instance, for street shows, and you break your leg, it's over. You don't have money anymore. You don't have a job anymore. And what you're going to do, right? So always sort of, that's also something to keep in mind, that it's not all, So it's not very secure. I know people that did theater, and theater you can actually make good money, and then they really make a lot of money 1 month, and then they don't have a theater show for 2 months or something, or they don't have a fixed gig. So then they're out of money for that time and have to figure something out. So, that's also a downside. But yes, the short answer still is yes, you can make money from break. See you next time.